What's up everyone, Sean from ARTV. It's time for a review of the debut self-titled album by Camila Cabello, my first review of a 2018 album. And I'm happy to say that we are starting things off on a good foot. 2017, I'm still a little bitter about a lot of things, but maybe things are starting in the right direction, at least for music and maybe even pop music this year. You may recognize the name Camila Cabello because she used to be in the super popular girl group Fifth Harmony. Fifth Harmony have obviously continued on without her as a four-piece at this point. Some would say Fourth Harmony, but now Camilla is out on her solo track. And honestly, I didn't give her a ton of attention, and that's my fault. I listened to OMG, I listened to an iTunes preview of Havana, and I didn't think a ton of it, but I also didn't think negatively of it. It was just there, in my opinion, and I didn't really listen to the whole song, and that's a fault of my own, like I said. I only heard OMG in full, wasn't a huge fan of that, and that actually didn't even make it on the record. I had heard Crying in the Club, I think the majority of it, and I wasn't like super into the vibe. I just heard it in passing, and that didn't make the cut either because Camilla and her management said it didn't really fit with the vibe of the album and Camilla in general. In fact, they said it was a bit like disingenuous to her, it didn't feel like her track, so they scrapped it. Not including Crying in the Club and OMG on the album actually set something off in my mind because that said to me that she actually cares about the end product as to what ends up on the album. If it doesn't fit with the vibe of the album, it's not going to be here. It's not even on the deluxe edition. In fact, there's only, I think, an international deluxe edition, and it doesn't even contain that track. It just contains one of the other promotional singles that didn't make the standard album. So it was interesting to see the rollout process for this. And this LP does feel very much connected. And I respect what's going on here. I respect the sound choices, and I respect that she's embracing her Cuban and Latin influences. She grew up in Miami, but she's obviously of Cuban and American descent, and this is something that I see as in homage in a way to her heritage, but also her going out trying to find her own sound. There's a bit of a quiet yet raspy quality to her voice that makes her sound human, and I like that so much. I also love the organic instrumentation that's used throughout, whether it be acoustic guitars, maybe something a little bit more in the vein of like reggaeton, which is a very popular genre in many countries. Obviously, I know a lot of people are sick of it, but in the US, it's just starting to be a fad, and I'm okay with it, at least in a limited capacity, and this doesn't just feel like that because we get traces of island-styled music, the marimba popping up here and there and that sort of thing on tracks like Inside Out, which are super fun, by the way. It's just well instrumentated through and through. The production is on point, whether it be someone like Frank Dukes or Skrillex hopping in on track number 3, She Loves Control, which is just an ace up the sleeve. That one just feels like you can move, sway in the night to the music. It's one of those type songs. I was blown away my first listen through this album because I seriously didn't have expectations. I went in knowing that it's the girl that used to be in Fifth Harmony, and that's really the main thing that I knew. Like I said, I had heard traces of her music, but didn't have any opinions on her whatsoever. In fact, I've never listened to a full Fifth Harmony record before. I left my buddy Spectrum Pulse to do all that listening and reviewing, but I did notice that her voice stood out to me once I actually saw like live performances, and also when I could separate like who was doing what vocal. Camilla did stand out to me because, like I said, I like the human quality to her voice. Not calling her bad by any means, it's a compliment because so many people feel so processed that on this record, and my first listen through I was really noticing, she just sounds genuine. Never Be the Same opens up this record, and I will say that I don't think that everybody is going to love her voice, and that's okay. I think that on this track in particular, even though I like it, some people might not like those higher register notes where she's really kind of pushing her voice to really reach that next plateau, especially when she's talking about the way the love makes you feel like heroin, like morphine, everything like that. And I know the whole love drug combo thing and the illusion there, I know it's overused, but on a track like this, it totally works. And the chorus is just so utterly pop and so utterly catchy that you can't put it down. It's one of those songs that just takes the styles of something old and something new, meshes them together, and you get something that is very much Camilla. The track listing flows very well together, and it's very well organized and presented to us here. I like the fact that none of these songs feel like they're trying too hard. They're not overly produced, they're not trying to make you dance, but at the same time, I feel the heat and intensity as some of these tracks pick up. Some of the ones like singles, Havana featuring Young Thug. That one is a slow burn, and as it slowly adds in more organic instrumentation, I love it. The piano that loops all throughout is super catchy, and like I said, I hadn't spent a ton of time listening to that song whatsoever. I hear it in passing here and there, and I thought that it was kind of hooky, it would get in my head, but I never heard the full song. Now, I am hooked to Havana. This is one of those that could light up the dance floor on a winter night or a summer night, it doesn't really matter. I already briefly mentioned She Loves Control, which is co-produced by Skrillex, and it really doesn't feel like a Skrillex track, which I like. He adds kind of a Latin romp to the track and the way that the song feels. It's very much commanding, especially once we get to that chorus. She owns this song and she's in complete control, whether she's being dominating like that or something like Inside Out, where she's talking about loving someone inside out. It might be a little bit cheesy lyrically, but still the chorus hits and it's very much fun. It's not taking itself so damn seriously, and that's the problem that I have with so much of pop these days. It's like edgy this or dark Tumblr-esque, I'm all in my feelings this. This is in your feelings, but it also feels genuine. It reminds me of the early 2000s in pop, where it is a bit dramatic, it's entertaining, but it's not so over the top that it's just like, come on, give me a break. Even the ballads here, she knocks out of the park with ease. Something's Gotta Give definitely does show a sadder side to things, and I really like the lyrical content that pops up here, the way that she talks about almost feeling half alive, and if something doesn't hurt her, then why does she still cry? She's basically holding a lot of things in, and I think that this song really starts to unleash, because both of the ballads that are here, they start off as piano ballads, but Something's Gotta Give in particular, this one actually hits the floor and just kind of slowly accelerates as it adds in extra things like drums, a little bit of guitar and bass work as well. It shapes up so nicely, and I love this. Along with the other one, which is called Consequences, where you obviously talk about the consequences of love and a relationship that maybe had a bit of a falling out. Her vocals on Consequences have a bit of a hopelessly hopeful type vibe, if that makes sense. The fact that she's talking about something that can be taken as detrimental and hard to get through. Loving you had consequences. Now I'm looking back and reflecting at everything. But the strong vocals and the way that the sense of urgency in the song rises with the instrumental and just the piano in general, the way that it can swell on this track, I think that there is still hope in her. She's very young, she's only 20 years old, and I like what she's saying here. Honestly, she seems a lot wiser than a lot of her other peers in the pop world at this point. I do have a few criticisms of the record, and really, they're mild, honestly. I mean, some of the songs do take a little bit to get going. Sometimes the instrumentation is a bit too sparse, and I wish that there was something else in there, like maybe just a little bit of a horn section could kick in like it does on Havana, or some of these other tracks where they mix things up and make it a little bit more high octane, high spirited, and some of them just don't feel like they take off as much as I would want them to. It's never really a vocal problem or a production problem. It's just like I said, sometimes they just feel a bit too steady throughout, and really there's only one song that I would say is maybe a least favorite, and that's the second track, All These Years. It's perfectly okay, but it does feel a bit more limited in terms of what it has to offer compared to these other songs that surround it. There's not another song here that I really dislike, and not that I dislike this one, it's just that I guess I dislike it in comparison to some of the other ones. It doesn't stand up as tall. On the other side of the fence, we have my absolute favorite that I've been saving to talk about, and that is In the Dark. It's track number 9. It's the next to last track, I mean, unless we're counting the radio edit of Never Be the Same, which we're not. Why am I going to talk about the song twice when there's really no differences? In the Dark is a great track. I love the opening. The synthesizer, it just feels a little bit airy. We hit the atmosphere, and as the song progresses, it does have a fun vibe to it. It's very much attracting and alluring. You see something in this song that you don't see in a lot of the others, and I like that she's able to mix it up, have a chemistry about it, and have a great instrumental that does lend itself to being sung and just like humming along, dancing, tapping your foot, whatever you want to do. I love that it has that quality, but it doesn't stray from the overall plan of the album. It doesn't take away from what the other connectivities of this album has. I guess that leaves me with only one other song to talk about, and that is the final song, Into It, which reminds me of Selena Gomez in a way, just the way that she presents herself vocally. The track is kind of snappy, the way that it has that quality to it, but it's not a bad thing whatsoever. In fact, I'm drawn to this one as well, and that's why this album is leaving me where I'm like, I want to loop this again. It's very easy to listen to. It's only 33 minutes long, and as I sit down, play the record, I have to say that I'm impressed. Camila Cabello and her debut album is something that, like I said, I went into this and I had no expectations, but I left and I feel like I'm better because of it, because I found a new pop artist that I really like, and I hope that this album performs well. I hope you guys like it. I love the fact that there's guitar all throughout this record, and there's also a lot of other instrumentation that is different for the world of pop. So what do you guys think about this record? Me personally, I'm going to give this a strong 4 out of 5. Don't forget to drop a like on the video while you're here, and consider supporting me on Patreon at that top link in the description. You can go directly to my Patreon by tapping that annotation in the corner of the screen. It really does help videos keep coming not only on this channel, but beyond ARTV as well. If you would like to see another pop review, you can tap right over here, or another recent video I did on the channel right over here. All of my social media that you see here can be found linked in the description. And other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV. Don't forget to subscribe.